Hey, how you doing,
Hey,
Calvin?
are you?
Hi,
Good, good.
Kevin. Hi, everybody. Hi, Doug. Hi,
Hey,
NAILDad.
hey, Tom.
And hello to the everybody who watching us.
Yes.
Okay, so today we have a guest, Mr. NAILDad. It would be very appropriate for let Mr. NAILDad introduce himself. So, NAILDad, please introduce yourself. Maybe a couple minutes, please.
Okay. Hey guys, this is NAILDad, and you guys know me. Plus, on my platform, I do the Nail Lives and also Q&As at night. Just got back from my trip to Philly and Boston for my classes, but I'm here joining two chemists, and they wanted me to ask a few questions, and I'm about to ask them some questions. Hopefully, it can help the community and help a lot of you guys out. Some information that will definitely benefit the community and maybe in a level where you're not just asking someone that maybe don't have the science behind it, because I am a nail artist and educator, but I'm not a chemist. So I would not have the information they would have pertaining to some of the questions I'm going to ask today, which we're going to move on to.
Okay, thank you, NAILDad. And we also have Mr. Schoon, our regular host, to get co-host with me as a chemist. So I guess everybody already know. Now that we are on different field, you are working closer and teaching and experience the nail art, the nail application, and that is your day in and day out. Do it in the real life. Doug and I, on the other side of the equation, we had the scientific background. We work and make the product for the nail professional. So there will be some cross information going back and forth. In my life, I think for Doug life too. Not only that the chemists go out and tell what the nail professional what to do, we also very often we listen to the nail pro. What do they want to know? What the experience that they saw that we don't know, and they teach us back. So it's a communication between the two different professions in the same industry. So so today I just want to make sure that everybody feel comfortable sharing the information. If today is the April Fool, and if I have to make one joke of today, it would be like, I'm the chemist. I know everything. That would be my joke of the day. Okay. So now, how about let's start with your question, and then later on, if we have question, we ask you. But later on, if you have some information that you think that we should know, maybe we don't know, then please share with us. We exchange our knowledge together.
I'm pretty sure this is one of the biggest questions that everybody probably asks all the time, and I mean I give an answer to this question, but in a sense, maybe not in this level, but monomer, liquid monomer for acrylics, EMA versus MMA. At what point was MMA deemed not legal or not used for nail, and then what point EMA came along, and what was really the difference? What was removed? What was changed? So that the difference, MMA versus EMA. So what do you guys, let me hear you guys, your insights on that, because I'm pretty sure you guys have dealt with that.
Where did we start? We start with MMA, right? We meaning the whole industry, okay? And then later on, we phasing out, and then regulation come. So please tell us.
Yeah, I got interested in this industry in the early 90s, mid 90s, and started working as a scientist for creative nail design. And I got involved in the regulations as well, because I was a co-chair of the Nail Manufacturers Council, which is all the manufacturers together to really uplift the industry. And they really did a lot of good work for industry, especially when it came to health and safety. One of the very first issues we dealt with was MMA and EMA. So I can definitely tell you the history of how all this happened. In the very early days of the nail industry, the only products that were really being used were MMA, because MMA was dental acrylic, and it was the primary thing used to make dental acrylics and, surprisingly, bone cements. Bone cements are the primary bone cement in the world today is MMA. It has a long history of uses for these two things. So when people with dental backgrounds got interested in seeing that there was a need, they innovated products using the same kind of monomers for nails, even though they were designed for dentures. Well, they found out very quickly that the way people use this product was different than the product's properties allowed, because the product didn't really have very good adhesion to the nail plate. So they created primers that would increase adhesion in the nail plate, but those primers were very corrosive, and people found out very quickly that they just roughed up the nail and filed the nail a lot, they could get the MMA to stick. So they started roughing the nail up with heavy abrasives, and the MMA would go down inside the nail plate and grab on really, really tightly. And one of the disadvantages that MMA is it's extremely difficult to soak off, much more difficult than EMA. So people would lose patience and they would just force the MMA off the nail and damage their nail plates. And also because there wasn't very much education in the industry, people were getting MMA everywhere, all over everybody. And more people started developing allergic reactions. And the FDA got a huge amount of complaints suddenly out of nowhere because nails became popular suddenly. And they got frightened. They said, wait, what is all this stuff? So they looked in it and they saw that people were using this dental acrylic. So they made a knee-jerk reaction. Rather than trying to educate people, they said, hey, we just will ban this. And as soon as it was banned, the industry didn't argue. They said, well, EMA, we found out by experimenting, is actually better. It has a less pungent odor. It doesn't adhere. It adheres a little bit better. It's a little easier to put on. It was more expensive. They didn't like that because MMA is a commodity chemical. But they thought it was elevating the industry by changing to EMA, and they could make products that overall were better for the nail plate. And that's really the genesis of the whole issue. And for many years, a lot of people kept selling MMA because it was so much less expensive. But then the states jumped in and other countries started kind of banning MMA. You started hearing all the myths and misinformation flying around that MMA causes cancer and all this nonsense. It was really just frightening scare tactics. The real reason MMA shouldn't be used, in my opinion, is it only sticks to the nail plate if you really rough up the nail plate. And then once you do, it locks down on the nail plate and you're going to have a really hard time getting it off. So because of those issues, it doesn't suit the nail plate very well. There are better products now that are more advanced that suit the nail plate well, that when you take the product off, the nail's not damaged. It is possible to remove artificial nails and see little to no damage. But unfortunately, those kind of techniques aren't often taught anymore, and people just go right to the electric file, and they go right to prying products off. So we're starting to see a resurgence of the original problems that MMA was causing. We're starting to see a lot more nail damage as people are starting to use more of this type of monomer. So my recommendation is use products that contain EMA. I think they're far better for the nail plate overall.
That's kind of what I tell my viewers when they ask about the MMA versus EMA. That is technically not illegal. There's still the chemical is still used in other products like dentures and all that stuff. I'm just that they found out that
cosmetics. The FDA has forbidden its use in cosmetics.
Yes. So
many states have passed regulations and other countries have. So from a regulatory point of view, I think it's kind of skirting around the edge to say it's not legal. To me, that's really not the issue. Whether it is or not, it wouldn't even debate you. I think the real issue is it wise to use when there's better technology available? It's really talk about old school. MMA is as old school as you can go.
Absolutely. That's what I feel like. As our nail industry grows, products will become more available and more it'll be better, and we get more understanding of the product. And I feel like the misconception of MMA when it gets brought up is that, oh no, it's like the crazy solution that is like super highly illegal that we should not be using. But I try to make sure that nail techs in this industry that come in, beginners, people that maybe haven't gone to school or understand that it's not as crazy as you think. It's just that, like you said, EMA is just a better product to use, and that MMA just bonds better. It takes longer to soak off. So of course, we want to, you know, limit the soaking off process and limit the amount of bondage on the nail plate to limit the amount of damage. And that's just very normal. So the fact that MMA is still used for other things is just means that it's not like that scary chemical that you think it is. It's just not used for the beauty. And I really like that you brought up, Doug, about how when it automatically people start making complaints about it, the FDA just kind of, you know, banned it right away because they really didn't really look into it. It's just, oh, people are complaining too much, so we're just gonna ban it right now. Luckily, we had EMA. If we didn't have EMA, if they banned MMA, how would we do nails, right? If we
Wouldn't
didn't
have.
have EMA at that time, we wouldn't have. Like
We actually
they
did
would
later
not.
to get rid of EMA and were unsuccessful because we could
Yeah.
prove it was safe as used.
Mm-hmm. The
Is it-
difference between dehydrator and primer. We know we both apply both of them, and we know now, as on the field, I know that I get asked a lot about dehydrator and primer. I, for one, use primer, but they're both added onto the nail plate. What's the difference between them, and why are they used? Can you break it down why dehydrator is used, and then why primer is used, and the difference between the two for the viewers?
So
Okay.
the hydrator, okay, it is like this. Okay, hydrating is getting more moisture, getting more water. But dehydrator is the thing that take water away. Okay, so there are two means to make it away. The first mean is by using chemical. The second means is using some device such as heat or something that make water evaporate, right?
Mhm.
So the something can if it's supposed to dehydrate the nail plate, it's supposed to have either the solvent that evaporate and then while it evaporate it brings some of the moisture and the water together with it going into the air, right? Just
Okay.
like you have you still have your wire with you?
Hey, Tom,
Okay.
you're not on screen, Tom.
Oh yeah, I'm say it again.
You're not on screen.
We
You're
can't
not on
see.
screen.
Okay, let's
There.
okay. Can you see me now? Okay, good. All right. So I I think in the dehydrator, um, you know, and it's in the bottle, right? So it's not a device to
Yeah.
create heat. So
Correct.
if it's not a device, then it's a group of solvent in that bottle that when you put on the nail, when the solvent evaporate, it brings some of the moisture together with it, right?
Correct.
So just like if you have a shot of whiskey of vodka 40-degree alcohol, so
That
you
sounds delicious.
on the wall of the glass you see some vapor coming up, right? Your wine may see that too, but the 40-degree alcohol will do that. Oh, how about this? The disinfectant. You know, if you have some 70-degree disinfectant that contain alcohol, what beside alcohol does it have? Some water, right? Right. So when you spray the disinfectant that has more than 70% alcohol on your table, later on you will see you don't see the 30% water there, right? The table is dry. Maybe it still has some little trace of some oil or something like that. Okay, so talking about oil, I looked up the dehydrator for nail on the internet last hour, and I see not only that it takes the water away, it also take oil away. Do you think it's take oil away?
Do you think it's possible?
I don't think so. You know, so this is why. Okay.
Well,
So
I agree.
Whoa. You say yeah. Well, if I honestly think
okay, go
it
ahead.
does dry. Okay, so we know what a dehydrator is. The function of dehydrator is removing moisture. Okay.
Yeah.
But where's it removing moisture from? That's what you guys are missing.
Exactly.
You
So for
remove it
me,
from the upper surface. That's the key. It's the upper
correct.
that you're adhering to. So all we care about is the surface. So nail dehydrators are designed to pull moisture just from the surface of the nail. You can't dehydrate the nail. That's impossible. You just pull from the surface nail, and Tom is absolutely right that solvents are going to pick up some oil as they do. In fact, that's important to know, because if you always stick your brush back into the same bottle and you just keep refilling it with your nail dehydrator, after a while you're going to build up oil inside that bottle. It looks like earwax. And when you do, while you're doing that, you're really redepositing oil on your nail every time you use dirty primer or dirty dehydrator. So you want to make sure these are fresh and clean and use them properly.
Yeah. So if you want to do it, I think I would do this, and let me share with you and see if you agree or not. Okay. In order to make that nail bed nice and clean, okay, get rid of some of the excess water and also some contamination from oil, then wipe it off using the dehydrator or some alcohol or some solvent. Wipe it off so that by the action of wiping, you don't leave the cross contamination from one place of the nail to another, from one nail to another nail, right? So you always take away.
I agree.
The key, Doug, the words that you guys said is that it only removes the oil or, moisture from the top of the plate, right?
The surface.
Our natural nails, the surface, our natural nails.
Down into the little nooks and crannies on the surface too.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go down and dehydrate all the water and oil out of your nail plate. It couldn't possibly do that.
Exactly. So my question is, when we do nails, we prep the nails, correct?
Well,
so
that means
so the process of us, removing the first layer, kind of would say, of the nail bed, like roughing it with the sanding band.
Okay. First off, we're talking about the nail plate, I assume.
Yeah, it's the nail plate.
Okay. And roughing it is when we say we're removing the first layer, there aren't that many layers on the top.
I'm talking about the shine, the sheen.
I know that. So when we start roughing up the nail plate, we're really removing considerable amounts of nail plate, and that's weakening the nail plate. If you're taking off more than the first layer of the nail, you're weakening the nail plate. And there's really no reason to do that. All you have to do is remove the shine, and the shine is caused by oil. And the shine is caused by the surface being smooth. So if you can make the surface not smooth and you can remove the oil, now you've prepped, and your nail will not even be noticeably thinner. It'll still be the same thickness if you look at it side by side. But if it's not the same thickness and you remove nail plate, you've overfiled, in my opinion.
Of course. So, you have to be careful what you're using. You're not going to use a very coarse sanding band. Nowadays, with the prepping process, we use sanding bands at salons and a lot of nail techs too. But my key is we're removing that oil from the top, right? Like you're bumping.
You should do that by scrubbing with a cotton pad, and I agree with Tom. That's the best way to get that oil off the nail plate is to physically scrub it with the solvent remover, the acetone or the alcohol, whatever you're using, to cleanse it from all the nooks and crannies. And now you have a properly prepared nail plate as opposed to one that's just prepared.
Okay, so how do you guys feel about the nail industry now? The nail industry now, 99% of them are using a sanding band to prep the nail plate when they apply acrylic.
And over thinning the nail plate. And you know what they say? You can't build a strong house on a weak foundation. So they create their own problems by thinning the nail plate too much and then trying to get adhesion to a nail plate that's now wobbly. So they get adhesion loss. Oh my gosh, why? Well, it's because you over thin the nail plate. We're here to enhance the nail plate, not to replace it. Our products don't replace the nail plate. We enhance it and make it better. And that should be done safely without damaging the nail. And if you're damaging the nail, then I don't think you're enhancing it. You're just harming it.
Yeah,
we shouldn't do it.
I'm on the field and I ask these questions. Of course, I do that. I lightly rough the nail, and it's faster for me. It's quicker for me than drying up. And I feel like it does give me better adhesion because it's kind of a more rough surface. So I don't really use dehydrator because I know that once I rough the plate, I remove the oil.
If you knew that just using a dehydrator and then using a primer, that you didn't have to remove any of the nail plate and you could keep it just as thick as it always was, don't you think that would be a valuable trade-off?
It is a valuable trade-off, but I've actually Doug, as you said, you guys are on the back end. You guys know the numbers and you know the techniques. But for us on in the field, we've done a multitude of techniques and ways. And I have done nails where I don't use any dehydrator or I don't use any primer at all, just to test it. I left the plate nice and oily, and it's still the adhesion is there. I understand that the heat.
I'm not talking about the back end. I'm talking about the client's end. I'm talking about the client's nails. Client's
Of course.
nails being harmed and over thinned by people who overly aggressively file in our industry. In fact, it's one of the #1 problems in our industry that people thin the nail too much. If you take artificial nails off and you see the nail has dipped down and it's shallower than the new growth, you've taken too much off. There shouldn't be any drop off. And if you're thinning your client's nails, you're harming your client's nails. They're not designed to be thinned. They're designed to be made strong and kept strong, and they'll be less likely to break, and you'll get better adhesion if you keep them thick. That's one of the problems with MMA. You would thin the nail plate down. In MMA, you can't break the stuff. So what's going to break instead of the MMA? What's going to break is the nail plate. So you would get bad bloody breaks across the nail plate, and the nails look beautiful, but they're bleeding underneath their nail plates. So this is why we want to keep the nail plate strong, and the product shouldn't be stronger than the nail plate itself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Acid versus non-acid primer.
Thong, you want to go? You want me to go?
That's my first job in C&D, right? Alright, so when Doug hired me, there was a project that we want to make acid-free primer. So 2001, Thuc on that. So I brought in all of the primer available in the market, both acid-based and also non-acid-based. The main thing is we just want to have good adhesion, right? But the original way is using acrylic acid. So the acidity of acrylic acid is not like sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid, but it's still strong enough to get a burn.
Methacrylic acid too. Methacrylic.
Yeah,
Both.
it's strong enough to burn finger hair, you know, and there was accident in the salon or accident at home when the nail tech bring primer home and the kid play around with that and it's burned, right? So it is not too strong, but strong enough to give damage if overexposed or directly exposed on skin, right? So the need is there. Still, okay, we need something to replace that traditional acid primer. So anything that not acid and give the stickiness, like okay, one side, one it has like Doug said about double-sided tape. We have some chemical that have an anchor on the nail plate, and another side of the anchor is hooking up to the polymer on top of that. So need to be thin. Primer need to be thin. Base coat may have a thicker layer, but when in our industry, when we talk about primer, we make sure we have a chemical priming the surface before the real deal on top of it, right?
Absolutely.
It's just like the primer they spray on a car before they paint it. You know, that's not designed to be the paint. Now the paint is going to stick better to the metal because you used it. So it is important, I think, to use a primer, especially on clients who have difficult to adhere to nails. And it's the key product that allow you to file less. So if you're going to experiment with less filing, make sure you're using a primer to compensate for it. Because I don't think just going no filing and no primer and normal prep is going to help with everybody. Not everybody has great nails, great adhesion. Some do, some don't. But for your more difficult clients, I would use a primer. And I would also add to what Thong said earlier, the real reason methacrylic acid fell out of favor was because of its corrosivity. It's corrosive to skin. So you get it on your skin, it burns like crazy. I've actually been in lawsuits with people who have been burned by it and have sued because of their burns. So it can happen, and people will splash it in their eyes. And a bunch of, like I said, Thong pointed out, hundreds of children over the course of a few years were accidentally burned by it. So using methacrylic acid is not a good idea. That's pretty much gone from the marketplace. It still exists, but the newer non-acid primers, they may still be acidic. They may be basic in pH. They're not talking about pH. they're saying it's not methacrylic acid, because non-acid primers nowadays could even be have a basic pH. They're just new chemistries or new kinds of ingredients, like Thong beautifully pointed out. One hooks up into the product above, one makes attachment point to the nail plate, and you've got better adhesion for both.
That's amazing. You guys broke that down, because whenever I get asked that question, acidic, non-acid, I jump to the pH level. Just they're all gonna have some kind of acidic into it. Just a different acidic level, or once you get past a certain level, it gets more. You get more irritation, burn on the cuticle area. Some clients actually have a reaction to acidic primer, and that's why they now non-acidic primer is just the way to go. There's no reason for you to get an acidic primer.
This is a big recommendation for for all the nail pros out there. It's when I became an educator. That was my aha moment in the nails, and from there, folks, that opened up so many doors for me. And you guys know me, you know what I do. On that note, folks, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with my sister. Ooh, I'm gonna surprise you when when we see you in 2 weeks. All right, we're gonna have new questions, new topics. Doug, Schoon, Thong Vu, thank you so much, and NAILDad, thank you, my brother. Looking forward to having you back. Okay,
Thank
peace
you
out,
all.
folks.
Bye bye.
All right, bye, guys.